Hello and welcome to the Corporate Storytime podcast series. My name is Lucas Robinson, the host of the podcast. On this pod, I'll get the opportunity to talk to ASX company leaders and innovators as they run through their personal executive journeys and the stories behind the companies they are helping to grow today. I'll be leveraging my experience as a former stockbroker and my current role with investor relations consultancy, Corporate Storytime. But enough of that. For now, let's gather round, come in close, and let me tell you a story.
David Hutton is the Managing Director of Rimfire Pacific Mining, a critical minerals explorer with key assets located in New South Wales. Specifically, Rimfire has a long history as an explorer in the central west of New South Wales, which is home to some of Australia's largest and longest life copper, gold, porphyry mines such as Cadia, Cowal and North Parks. In this province, Rimfire counts as neighbours mining companies such as Rio, Evolution and FMG. Rimfire has also had recent success exploring for the battery metal Cobalt in the iconic Broken Hill region. David, you're a South Australian North Melbourne Football Club fan. How did you come to be in the mineral exploration game?
Well, thanks, Lucas. Many years ago, I think it probably stems back from a childhood that was largely spent out in the bush, basically. I grew up in the highlands of Papua New Guinea, and I spent all my sort of formative years, running around the bush. So there was always, I suppose, a destiny that I was going to work in some sort of outdoor job or profession. And then, moving through high school, I developed a love for the natural sciences, and it culminated when I got to university in picking a subject called geology, which I didn't know anything about at the time, but it proved to be rather fortuitous. And as I spent longer and longer studying geology, I'm just lucky that it all clicked. And I was.
So where was uni for you, David? And when did you move to Australia from PNG?
So I went to Monash University, and I spent the first 12, 13 years of my life in Papua New Guinea. So my parents ran tea plantations in the highlands. So, I had my fifth birthday up there in Mount Hagen, and then we moved back just after independence, and just in time to basically get into secondary schooling in eastern or in suburban Victoria, and then went to Monash University after that. So. And it was at uni that, as I say, I sort of realised that geology was the one. I was doing a lot of different subjects at the time, but geology seemed to make sense, and it all sort of started to click. And I had some good people around me that taught me the right things. And then, after graduating from Monash, I did some great work with some good people there. I got a job as a graduate geologist with Mount Isa Mines up at Mount Isa. And the first day on the job, I was sent down the bottom of the mine, and I wondered what the hell I just signed up for.
Is that right? It's funny, you're the third subject in this podcast series in a row that started their career at Mount Isa.
It doesn't surprise me. It was an amazing program. So this was 1990. I'd gone to Mount Isa as a student as part of the Monash University structural mapping course through the honours year. I went up there in mid-1989 and I met a few of the people at the mine, and I was very lucky to receive a job offer to go and join their graduate program in 1990. And in those days, that graduate training program, and there were those programs, a few of the big companies, BHP, Rio, RGC at the time, they all offered them. But the Mount Isa Mines one was particularly special. We all sort of came from all over different parts of Australia. We were all sort of thrown into the single person's quarters. And we found ourselves, working underground in an exploration. And for the next couple of years, it proved to be an amazing start. And I think one of the things that was really significant about that training program, and I'm sure your other people would have said the same thing, is that there was so much experience and knowledge working in and around those operations. As a young graduate geologist who was, very, very green behind the ears, being able to suddenly work alongside geologists and mining professionals who'd been in that mine for 20 or 30 years, it was just the best learning environment. And, we're very lucky that, we got shown and we experienced these amazing things, but also, like all of these things, made some awesome friendships. And some of those friendships and associations that I made way back then still in place today.
Yeah, well, it sounds like a great nursery for a young geologist, and in an iconic mining town. I suppose you got up to a bit of fun in your off time.
Oh, there was, yeah. That's all part of leaving home and learning to grow up. But yeah, there was a bit of fun. In those days, all the graduates, and I think that my graduate intake, there was probably in the order of 70 to 80 graduates across all the disciplines that started at the same time. In our barracks, there was geologists, metallurgists, there was a geophysicist, and there was a couple of mechanical engineers. And the barracks that they put us in, the old, what they called the BSD, that was actually originally, it was a US Army base during the Second World War when they used to forward position all the troops and whatever into Mount Isa before sending them up north. But luckily for us, unluckily for others, it was right next door to the Irish Club. So we all rapidly became members of the Irish Club, and we'd spend a lot of our spare time drinking away our profits. It was great. But it's character building. We all, we played sport for the local footy clubs. I worked on the local Mount Isa rodeo as a bouncer on the front gate of the rodeo. We all bought very loud, fast V8 cars, firearms, and very loud stereos, and we used to.
Brilliant.
We used to carry on like pork chops, but at the same time, it's learning on the job, but learning about yourself and life, and it was bloody brilliant. I wouldn't have changed it for the world. It was great.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's obviously a very valuable setting to be, in a working, active mine. How did you get into the greenfields exploration, going out first principles, sort of kicking rocks and trying to make discoveries, getting into that end of the industry?
Yeah, well, I think initially when I went to Mount Isa, I'd signed up. I thought I was signing up to be an exploration geologist. And, the irony was, having never worked in industry at all, I seemed to have all these ideas of what I thought I should be doing. And, of course, that all amounted to nothing when I rocked up. And the graduate training program, as I was to find out later on, rotated you amongst mining operations, mining positions, and also exploration positions. So I rocked up on day one and I reported to the exploration manager, who just promptly told me I was going to start my life as an underground geologist. And so it was probably, 6 to 8 months later when they started to then transition me into surface exploration jobs. So initially, my very first exploration job was drilling some RC holes around the actual mine, looking at some of the shallow peripheral copper targets. And then it sort of evolved from there, where as they sort of realised that I sort of was not going to kill myself on the job type thing, and I sort of was, I suppose, half knew what I was doing, then I was gradually moved into more regional exploration jobs. And then in my second year in Mount Isa, I then moved into more of the regional greenfields exploration. And I found.
And I imagine that the grounding you had for however many months in witnessing production from an economic operating mine was invaluable in shaping your thoughts around exploration activity near and around that mining operation.
Oh, undoubtedly. And I argue strongly that the best exploration geologists are the ones that not only have they seen a lot of rocks and they've been out in the country and walked over a lot of ground, but I think it is imperative, it's 100% critical that exploration geologists have spent time in a mining operation, be it an underground operation, an open pit operation. The key lesson that you learn from being in a mine is basically what an ore body looks like in 3 dimensions. And importantly, you understand the concept of grade, morphology, shapes, weathering, all those sort of important things. And I think that, explorationists are fundamentally optimists, but we have to have our optimism rooted in commercialism. What is commercial? What's going to make money? What are the key things that matter ultimately when you start to try and mine something? So for me, I've been very lucky. I've had a number of times in my career where I've worked both in and around open pit mines and also working geologically in underground mines. And I'd like to think that it's been really beneficial for my learning and development over the years.
Yeah. So obviously that was the early years in Queensland. I know for a fact that you spent longer with MIM in other geographies. Where else did that company take you to, and what are some of the things that you achieved at the projects you were involved with MIM?
Yeah, well, so after the Mount Isa and the sort of the northwest Queensland exploration, and interestingly, I was actually working on the Mount Isa Mines property adjacent to the Sentry deposit at this very same time that Sentry was discovered. So a colleague of mine who had come through uni, it was on the then CRA side of the fence, and I was on the Mount Isa Mines of the fence. But after a couple of years in Mount Isa, I transferred with the organisation across to Western Australia. And one of the first areas I found myself in WA was on up in the Paterson province, which is not far from where the Winu discovery was made many, many years later by Rio.
Yeah, Telfer would have been up and going by then, well and truly.
Yeah, Telfer was up and running back in the days when Telfer was very much a closed camp to any third party. So we operated in a very humble little exploration camp just out on the outskirts of Telfer. We could see the mine lights every night. We could hear the machines running, but we could never go there for a cold beer.
Torturous.
Yeah, exactly. Well, luckily, I knew the chief geologist at the Nifty mine, and Nifty was just coming into production. So we used to sneak across the dunes and have a cold beer at the bar at Nifty, which was always a nice sight. So I spent a couple of years up in the Paterson doing copper exploration all down around Nifty as well. And then there was an opportunity to go to South America with one of the offshoots of Mount Isa Mines. And in the mid-1990s, I found myself in Argentina running copper exploration programs sort of on the edge of the Andes, which was quite an amazing cultural sort of experience. Bloody cold at times too. And after a while there, I sort of came back, spent a little bit of time in Chile, and then sort of, came back through a couple of the Mount Isa Mines connected operations in North America to do with Asarco at the time. Had a look at a few of those sort of copper, gold, skarn, porphyry type deposits, and then found myself back in Western Australia. And then from there, I sort of started to branch out into some of the gold exploration work that Mount Isa Mines was doing in the gold fields as well. And as you may recall, my first boss for Mount Isa Mines in Western Australia was closely related to your good self, Lucas.
My father, Stuart, yeah, so he's enjoying a quiet life in retirement these days, but
exactly.
Very much enjoyed his career in exploration.
It wasn't quite back then. It was a good team we had, and I think once again in Western Australia, like in Mount Isa, the Mount Isa Mines organisation, it was one of those beautiful organisations where very young geologists like myself could work alongside very experienced industry veterans who, were just really happy to share all of their knowledge. So as a place to learn, it was just fabulous. So, but after all of that, coming towards sort of the back end of the 1990s, I decided to leave Mount Isa Mines, the MIM Exploration Group, and I joined the junior gold sector. And so I made the big leap out of a big company, went into a very small company at the time called Forestania Gold, and I basically joined the junior gold end of the sector, and that was my first taste of what West Perth was all about back in the mid-late 1990s. And so I spent quite a few years with Forestania Gold and a number of companies that sort of evolved out of Forestania Gold. And that was primarily conducting gold exploration throughout pretty much the length and the breadth of the WA goldfields. And so I spent a lot of time, from Ravensthorpe to Kalgoorlie, Kambalda, Spargoville, Widger-Millthorpe, all the way up to Leonora and Leinster. And through that process, once again, bumped into some very, very good exploration people, and was fortunate to be involved with a number of significant discoveries and things over the years, working alongside some excellent geologists that group employed from time to time.
And at some point along the way, you found yourself in sort of senior executive roles within some of these junior mining companies. I know you've been. This is your position in Rimfire isn't the first time you've had a managing director position in a ASX listed exploration company.
Yeah, that's right. So, one of the companies that sort of evolved out of that whole original Forestania Gold, start, if you like, was a company called Breakaway Resources, and we were a WA-focused gold and nickel explorer. We later on picked up and acquired a very large copper gold project in the Cloncurry district around the Eloise copper mine that was originally operated by Breakaway Resources. And there I was working as exploration manager. And then about 2008, sort of around the time of the GFC, circumstances sort of eventuated where I found myself being put into the MD's role following the departure of the previous MD. It was not a planned career transition at the time. It was one of those opportunities that presents itself. But
yeah, life happens while you're making plans, David.
That's exactly right, and you've got to grab these things. And I was very fortunate that both the previous managing director and also the chairman at the time, they were very supportive and very helpful and mentored me. So I've been sort of working in that MD space of junior explorers now since about 2008. So I had a couple of years with Breakaway, and we, as I say, we really we did a lot of good work in the gold nickel space and the gold fields. We did a lot of work in the copper gold space around the Eloise mine over in Cloncurry in North Queensland, and that was a bit of a return to my Queensland Mount Isa copper roots, which was nice. And then in 2012. I was approached by the then board of Mithril Resources, that was a South Australian-based nickel, copper, gold explorer, to come back to Adelaide and take over the MD-ship of Mithril, which is something that myself and my family were happy to take up, and we've been back in Adelaide ever since 2012.
Right.
So that's it. And so 2012 running Mithril Resources, and then that sort of ended a couple of years ago when Mithril decided to change strategy, change direction. Mithril is now pursuing gold, silver assets in Mexico. I finished up. I set up my own consultancy business for a couple of years, and then about 2 or 3 years ago now, I first became involved with Rimfire, and in June 22, I became the managing director. Having been a non-executive director, I became the managing director of Rimfire Pacific Mining, and that's where we find ourselves today.
Yeah, that's where we've arrived at Rimfire, which is what I really want to talk about. So, Rimfire's got a series of projects and a long history exploring, as I said in that introduction, in the central western part of New South Wales, where, as I also said, there is a rich mining history and a very vibrant current sort of mining community. What minerals are you looking for there? What gets you excited about the projects that you've got? And where are you taking the company with respect to the assets in that part of New South Wales? Yeah,
that's right. So Rimfire, we've got 2 projects in the Parks area. So Lachlan Orogen, central New South Wales. We've got 2 projects that are subject to farming and joint ventures with our exploration partner. We also, outside of that, have 2 adjacent 100% owned projects in the area, sort of around the North Parks mine and also around the Cowal Gold Mine. And our 5th project, which is also 100% owned and rapidly expanding, is immediately west of Broken Hill, and it surrounds Cobalt Blue's cobalt sulfide operations over there. So, we are widely spread, but we are singularly focused on critical minerals. It's all about New South Wales. It's about positioning ourselves into mineralised, well-endowed jurisdictions and focused on critical minerals. When I first joined Rimfire, the company was still focused on exploring and trying to expand a gold-silver discovery that they had made. It was a successful discovery at the time, called Suppressor. For a number of reasons, Suppressor is marginal at the best, and one of the things that attracted me to Rimfire, and it still excites me and gets me going, and gets me coming to work every day, was when you looked at the overall sort of prospectivity, the mineralisation, the endowment of not just the Rimfire ground, but also the broader area, suddenly realised that there was amazing opportunities for critical minerals. So I'm talking about, scandium, cobalt, PGEs, nickel. We've also got, great copper exposure as well. All these minerals that are required if, we as a community, we as a country are going to meet the global decarbonisation targets that, our leaders have set us on the path to achieve. And the really interesting thing was that, while there was certainly merit in continuing the gold exploration, my belief, and I think it's been borne out by our shareholders and supporters as well, is the bigger upside for Rimfire is not in the gold. I mean, that's always got a role, but it's in about harnessing and leveraging off these critical minerals. And the thing that, as I said, really excited me was when I looked at the projects, and the projects have been in Rimfire for, a long time, is that despite multiple generations of very good exploration by very good explorationists, the critical minerals opportunities as a whole had been largely, whatever reason, overlooked. And so one of the things that characterises Rimfire today is we've got a very good exploration team. I've got some very seasoned, experienced, commercially minded, as I said before, commercially minded exploration geos. And so we are able to let them loose on what otherwise would be regarded as sort of mature exploration projects and continue to unearth new exploration opportunities. And that's what excites me, so there are still things that we're doing. So we're about to embark upon, drilling programs of new scandium occurrences, following up.
I'll just stop you there. Look, a lot of the listeners may not know a lot about the metal scandium, and its industrial applications and its utility, I suppose, as a critical mineral. Yep. You and I are aware that, Rimfire is probably one of the few ASX sort of exposures for investors seeking exposure to scandium. Can you just give us a little bit of an idea about what sort of a metal it is and what it's used for and, its value?
Yeah, scandium, element 21 on the periodic table. If you follow the periodic table, it's effectively it's quite an amazing metal. Actually, it's not very well known, but it is sort of, I suppose, loosely sort of grouped within the rare earth metals in a sense. But one of the amazing things about scandium is that it has these very unique properties that when it's blended or formed in an alloy with aluminium, it produces a metal alloy which displays superior strength, heat resistance, corrosion resistance compared to most of the traditional metals. And importantly, not only with that strength and heat resistance, it's incredibly lightweight. So one of the consumers and one of the sort of the forward projected consumers of scandium is all of those industries, those advanced manufacturing industries that require lightweight, high strength, corrosion resistant, heat resistant metals. So we're talking aerospace, So, all of the new generations of aeroplanes, Boeing and Airbus and all these manufacturers, a lot of the new fighter jets for defence industries, some of the marine craft of the world's navies and things, they're all seeking to use these scandium alloys because of these properties that I've just described. And that's one use of scandium. The other real significant use of scandium, and this will continue to drive the consumption of scandium going forward, is that scandium, when put within what we call a solid oxide fuel cell, it's part of the hydrolysis reaction that generates hydrogen. So once again, as we move and as the world moves to global decarbonisation targets and we pursue alternative fuels to fossil fuels, the generation of hydrogen will be really important. And the need for scandium to make these solid oxide fuel cells work will be critical as well. So that's some of the uses. But the Western world faces a problem. And that is the Western world at the moment is entirely reliant on the supply of scandium from countries such as Russia and China. And so
as a byproduct of other metal production.
Yeah, typically. Yeah, it's very rare, and I'm not aware. There may be one, but I'm pretty much unaware of like a primary scandium mine. There are a couple of things happening. It's all very opaque happening within Russia and China, but one of the issues for scandium is up until now, because the manufacturers and the suppliers of fuel cells and Boeing and Airbus, all these companies, because they can't lock in secure long-term supply in favourable jurisdictions, they haven't fully embraced it. But now, because of geopolitical tensions around the world, they're now increasingly looking to countries like Australia for the supply of scandium. And, all the predictions are that the uses of scandium is going to just tremendously multiply over the coming years, as they're driven by hydrogen, aerospace, defence, and all of that sort of stuff. And luckily, and this is where Rimfire comes into it, because if you look in Australia, the epicentre, if you want to go and look for commercial deposits of scandium, we're thinking about size and grade, the Parkes district of New South Wales is the epicentre of scandium in Australia. And the space there is dominated by the majors. And we've just seen Rio pay $14 million US to enter into the Parkes scandium space. And the project that they bought, the Owendale project, they now call it Burra, it's basically directly along strike. It's actually, some of their tenements are join our tenements, directly along strike from where we're working in the scandium right now. And as you said before, Lucas, Rimfire is pretty much the only ASX-listed Australian junior operating in the scandium space. So, the players and Parkes in this space is Rio, it's Sunrise Energy Metals, which is a Robert Friedland company. Fortescue are in there, and pretty much there's Rimfire.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it sounds like a pretty nifty metal, and you guys aren't the only, you're not a major yet, but certainly there are some major mining houses twigging onto scandium as a metal of the future. So, look, what do you plan to do in the course of the next, 12 months, or over the course of 2024 to exploit this scandium opportunity in this sort of Parkes region?
Yeah, there's a couple of things. Well, first and foremost, we've identified 3 scandium prospects at the moment: Melrose, Murga, and Currajong. We're shortly, and they're all at different stages of advancement. Melrose is the most advanced. We are about to commence very shortly a resource drill out. We'll estimate a maiden JORC code compliant resource for Melrose. Concurrent with that drilling at Melrose, we are running a whole program of metallurgical test work to develop a flow sheet, a conceptual flow sheet for the production of a commercial combined product, scandium, cobalt, nickel, from Melrose, and we'll look to refine and build on that initial metallurgical test work. At the Murga prospect, which is right next door to Melrose, we've done some reconnaissance work over a very large mafic, ultramafic intrusive complex. We know the scandium is there. We are shortly about to embark upon an extensive air core drilling program that will delineate the extent of the mineralisation and also demonstrate, we hope, continuity of this high-grade material. And we also will later on the year, we'll start moving our drill rigs into the Currajong prospect, where not only do we have scandium, we also have bedrock PGE or platinum palladium mineralisation. In addition to all of that, we are continuing to explore regionally within the tenements. One of the things that sets our ground apart is that we've got about a 75 kilometre long belt of what we call Alaskan Ural style mafic, ultramafic intrusions. And it's the weathered skin or the weathered top of these deposits, of these intrusions, that host this mineralisation. And we've just scratched the surface. So in addition to these more advanced drill outs, we'll keep the pipeline, generation activities going as we do this regional work as well. So, it's going to be a busy year, and it's all about basically showing that what we have got is, as good as anything else in the Western world, basically.
That's a great summary of what Rimfire's up to in central New South Wales, trying to advance that really interesting scandium story. Moving down to the Broken Hill region of New South Wales, where we said earlier, Rimfire has got some really exciting cobalt exploration opportunities in a region which maybe some of the investors in the ASX will recognise as being the home of Cobalt Blue, another ASX listed company that's having some success with their cobalt project in the region. Over the course of the last 6 to 12 months, you guys have really taken some major steps forward with your own activities, exploring for cobalt, going over some ground that hadn't been explored with modern techniques since the last drilling was done in the 1980s. What's happened there? What have you guys achieved, and what are your theories around what you could be onto?
Yeah, well, the Broken Hill Cobalt project it's a really interesting and important play for us. I know at the moment the cobalt price is not where we'd like it to be, but that doesn't mean it's going to always stay there. So we see the Broken Hill Cobalt project as a counter-cyclic cobalt play. We're looking for cobalt and sulfide mineralisation there that, 40, 50 years ago, this style of mineralisation would have had zero value. But you touched on Cobalt Blue before. One of the successes of Cobalt Blue is they have developed proprietary processing techniques that can now unlock the value. It can literally extract the cobalt from these cobalt and sulfide mineralized deposits. So, recognising that there is value in that style of mineralisation at Broken Hill, we've gone back into our project, and through extensive data review, we identified 3 historic occurrences where, drilling by the Broken Hill base metal explorers back in the 1960s and 1980s did in fact intersect at the time cobalt sulfide mineralisation. But as I said, because the technology didn't exist at the time to do anything about it, these things have sat out in the paddock. So over the last 6 to 12 months, we've gone back. We've now worked up these 3 targets: Storolite Ridge, Railway Extended, and Bald Hill. And one of the highlights of last year is that after getting our land access sorted, we went out to Bald Hill and we drilled a initial 3-diamond drill hole program that was aimed at confirming the original historic high-grade intercepts that were obtained in Bald Hill's case back in 1980. So we sought to confirm that the old intercepts were real, and also give us a better idea of the geological setting of those deposits as well. The program was really successful. All 3 of our holes hit massive sulfides, and we hit some quite extraordinary widths, over several hundred metres of massive sulfide mineralisation. But importantly, the grades that were returned from the assaying of that drill core were 2 to 3 times that of the Cobalt Blue resource grade. So
wow.
we see, and then we see the opportunity is to basically go and delineate what I call generally high-grade cobalt sulfide mineralisation. Once again, one of the pleasing aspects of this is being able to bring geologists to the project that have got amazing amounts of experience. And the irony is that one of the geologists that's been helping us out there was the geologist that actually drilled the original holes in 1980 for North Broken Hill.
Can't beat that for experience.
No, so he's been waiting 40 years to go out and drill these holes, and it was quite amazing to see the core coming out of the barrel with sulfides everywhere, and then return the high grade. So that's given us a lot of confidence that we have a project in the right address and we have the right rocks. One thing we have just done, and we're just going through the process right now, is that we identified that our neighbour at Bald Hill, a company called Castillo Copper, had a number of tenements that they were seeking to divest, and they were tenements that were attractive to us. It sort of strengthens our cobalt narrative out there. So we're just working through the final completion process to acquire those tenements. And what that means as a result of that acquisition is that I think we've, somewhere between doubled and trebled the original project size to, I think it's just short of about 800-900 square kilometres of ground out there. So, while our scandium, what we're doing out in Parkes is very much the focus right now, Broken Hill Cobalt is a very important part of the Rimfire story. It is, as I said, a counter-cyclic play. It's all about establishing high-grade opportunities. The acquisition of the Castillo tenements, we know that from looking at the geophysics, the magnetics and everything, we know that the host rocks at Bald Hill in particular extend onto the Castillo ground. They haven't had a lot of work, but that's one of the things we're looking forward to looking ahead with this project is not only doing more drilling, diamond drilling at Bald Hill, but also getting onto the Castillo ground for the first time with the knowledge that we have gained from our diamond drilling, and basically trying to, generate further targets to unlock more value. And, we strongly believe that cobalt will have its time in the sun again. It has to, once again, for the world to pursue its global decarbonisation targets and achieve those targets, and all the issues with the supply of cobalt from jurisdictions that are less than, I say, ethical.
That whole concept of a battery passport where you have to prove the provenance and the ethical sourcing of these materials makes cobalt in a jurisdiction like New South Wales particularly valuable.
Yeah, that's exactly right, and that's the broader thematic around Rimfire is that we're into those critical minerals, those commodities that are needed for the world to achieve its electrification, decarbonisation, all of those considerations, but they're all located in very favourable, friendly jurisdictions, and the various state and federal governments recognise that as well.
Yeah. Well, it seems to be resonating with someone, David, because by my reckoning, the Rimfire share price over the course of the last 6 months is up about fourfold. I wonder, can the North Melbourne Kangaroos make your heart race in that same fashion during 2024?
Well, yes. I don't know if we can. I don't know.
You did say that as an exploration geologist, you're an incurable optimist. So as a Fremantle fan, I know how you feel.
Well, if I told you I've been barracking for North Melbourne for 50 years now, so the least they could do. I remember the glory days back in the 1990s. They were fantastic. I don't think we'll get there this year, but I'm putting all my optimism to this answer, but I think we'll definitely turn the ship around and maybe we'll be talking about the premiership in the next 2 to 3 years. Who knows?
Yeah.
I hope so.
Well, they've got their super coach in Alistair Clarkson, and I hope that Rimfire's got an equally inspiring leader to take their shareholders through to glory.
Well, I tell you what, if we happen to get there, you'll happily be able to take photos of me running around wherever in full North Melbourne kit. And that won't be a pretty sight.
Well, that was a great chat, David. And I think that anyone that tunes into this episode will get a real appreciation for what you're trying to achieve, the critical mineral strategy, and the fact that you're in fantastic destinations, both geologically and from a regulatory sort of framework point of view as well. Well done on what you've achieved so far in pivoting the company in the time that you've been in the managing director's chair. And, I'm really optimistic for you as you lead the company forward over the course of the next 12 months or more.
Excellent. Thanks, Lucas. And it's been good talking to you today. And as I say, next time North playing Frio, it's going to be an interesting conversation.
Go the Toppers. All right. Thanks, David.
Good on you, mate.